Hegel's Philosophy of Nature. Introduction. The Notion of Nature. Paragraph 248. In this externality, the determinations of the notion have the appearance of an indifferent subsistence and isolation with regard to one another. The notion is therefore internal, and nature in its determinate being displays necessity and contingency, not freedom. Remark. Nature is what it is through its determinate existence, and it should not therefore be deified. It is wrong to regard and treat the sun, the moon, animals, plants, etc., as works of God superior to the deeds and events of humanity. Nature is implicitly divine in that it is in the idea, but in reality its being does not correspond to its notion, and it is rather the unresolved contradiction. Its distinctive characteristic is its positiveness, its negativity. The ancients grasped matter in general as non-ends, and nature has also been regarded as the ideas falling short of itself. For in this external shape the idea is inadequate to itself. It is only to the external and immediate stage of sensuous consciousness that nature appears as that which is primary, immediate, as mere being. Even in such an element of externality, nature is nevertheless the representation of the idea, and consequently one may and should admire the wisdom of God within it. Vanini said that a piece of straw was enough to prove the being of God, but every product of the spirit, the very worst of its imaginings, the capriciousness of its most arbitrary moods, a mere word, are all better evidence of God's being than any single object. It is not only that in nature the play of forms has unbounded and unbridled contingency, but that each shape by itself is devoid of its notion. Life is the highest to which nature drives in its determinate being, but as merely natural idea. Life is submerged in the irrationality of externality, and the living individual is bound with another individuality in every moment of its existence, while spiritual manifestation contains the moment of a free and universal relation of spirit to itself. It is by a similar misunderstanding that we are led to regard that which is spiritual as generally less important than the things of nature. Works of art are sometimes prized less highly than natural things, because material has to be brought to them from without, and they do not live. This is to talk as if the spiritual form did not contain a higher animation, and spirit were not superior to natural form, as if form in general were not superior to matter, and as if that which may be called the matter of moral activity were not purely and simply the product of spirit, as if that which is higher and more animated in nature did not also take its material from without. The superiority of its conforming to its eternal laws through all its contingency is attributed to nature, but that is also the case in the realm of self-consciousness. Even faith acknowledges that a providence guides human events. Should we regard the determinations of this providence in the field of human events as merely contingent and irrational? If spiritual contingency or caprice goes forth into evil, that which goes astray is still infinitely superior to the regular movement of stars or the innocent life of the plant, because that which errs is still spirit. Addition. The infinite divisibility of matter simply means that it is external to itself. It is precisely this externality which we first wonder at in the immeasurability of nature. Thoughts are not coordinated in nature, for notionlessness holds sway here, and each material point appears to be entirely independent of all others. The sun, planet, comets, elements, plants, animals, all exist as self-contained particulars. The sun is not one and the same individual as the earth, and is only bound to the planets by gravity. Subjectivity is first encountered in life, which is the opposite of extrinsicality. The heart, liver, eye are not independent individualities on their own account. The hand severed from the body decays. The organic body is still a whole composed of a multiplicity of mutually external members, and each individual organ subsists only in the subject, and the notion exists as the power which unites them. In this way, the notion, which is something merely inward in notionlessness, first comes into existence in life as soul. The spatiality of the organism is completely devoid of truth for the soul. If this were not so, we should have as many souls as points, for the soul feels at every point. One should not allow oneself to be deceived by the appearance of extrinsicality. One should remember that the mutually externality constitutes only a single unity, although they appear to be independent. The celestial bodies have to patrol a single field. Since unity in nature is a relation between apparently self-subsistent entities, however, nature is not free, but merely necessary and contingent. Necessity is the inseparability of terms which are different, and yet appear to be indifferent. The abstraction of self-externality also receives its due there, however. Hence the contingency of external necessity, contrasting with the inner necessity of the notion. In physics, a lot has been said about polarity, and this has marked a great advance in the metaphysics of physics. For as a concept, it is nothing more nor less than the determination of the necessary relationship between two different terms, which insofar as the positing of one is also positing of the other, constitute a unity. Polarity of this kind limits itself only to the opposition. It is by means of the opposition, however, that there is also a positing of the return out of the opposition into unity. And it is this third term, which constitutes the necessity of the notion, a necessity which is not found in polarity. In nature, taken as otherness, the square or tetrad also belongs to the whole form of necessity, as in the form of elements, the four elements, the four colours, etc. The pentad may also be found in the 5 fingers and the 5 senses, for example. But in spirit, the fundamental form of necessity is the triad. The totality of the disjunction of the notion exists in nature as a tetrad, the first of which is universality as such. The second term is difference, and appears in nature as a duality, for in nature the other must exist for itself as an otherness. Consequently, the subjective unity of universality and particularity is the fourth term, which has a further existence as against the other three. In themselves, the monad and the dyad constitute the entire particularity, and the totality of the notion itself can therefore proceed to the pentad. Nature is the negative because it negates the idea. Jacob Boehme says that God's first birth is Lucifer, this creature of light having centered his imagination upon himself and becomes evil. This is the moment of difference, of otherness held firm in the opposition to the Son who is otherness held in love. Representations such as this, which have a free rein in orientalized taste, have their ground and significance in the negative nature of nature, immediacy in the other form of otherness, and consists in what is different, subsisting abstractly by itself. This subsisting is only momentary, however. It is not true subsistence, only the idea, because it was returned into itself and is therefore being in and for itself, subsists eternally. In time, nature comes first, but the absolute prius is the idea. This absolute prius is the finish, the true beginning. Alpha is Omega. Men often consider that which is immediate to be superior to that which is mediated, because the latter seems to imply dependence. The notion has both aspects, however. It is mediation through the sublation of mediation, and therefore immediacy. An immediate belief in God is often spoken of. This is the more degraded, and not the higher mode, however, and the original or primitive nature religions were an expression of it. Affirmation in nature is the shining through of the notion, which soon displays itself in power through the mutability of this externality. All existences are in fact one body, in which the soul has its dwelling, although the notion displays itself in these gigantic members. It does so imperfectly, and it is only in spirit that it exists as it is.